Hi, my friends. Welcome back, and thanks for joining me again for another episode Behind the Walls with your girl, Anna B. As always, shout out to all of my new friends, day ones, and in between. I appreciate the support and love. And of course, a big shout out to all of our friends who made a request for this video. Let's get into it. She was once a young and admired lawyer with a promising future. But Beth Carpenter has been in the custody of Connecticut's Department of Corrections since her conviction in 2002. While she has appealed and petitioned the courts, including federal court, that her trial lawyers made mistakes that resulted in her conviction, each time a judge has rejected those claims. She's housed at the York Correctional Institution in East Lyme, Connecticut, the state's only female prison with the capacity to house over 1,000 female inmates. Beth was convicted of murder and conspiracy to commit capital felony for plotting with her lover and her boss, Heyman Klein, to kill her brother-in-law, Anson Clinton, who was also known as Buzz. The plot was fueled by a nasty custody dispute amongst the Carpenter family in regards to Beth's niece. Buzz was fatally shot March 10, 1994. His body found near an I-95 off-ramp exit. Bullets found at the scene indicated he was shot with a .38 caliber revolver. Throughout their investigation, detectives learned that Buzz worked in construction in Boston and Washington State after high school. He would return to East Lyme when he was 24. He started towing cars and working as a male dancer to make ends meet. He met his future wife, Kim Carpenter, Beth's sister, who was the mother of a young daughter. He eventually enrolled himself in nursing school, stopped dancing, and began working in a nursing home. And in January of 1993, he and Kim got married, and 6 months later, the couple had a daughter of their own. At a time in his life where Buzz's father described him as happy, the 24-year-old's autopsy revealed he had been shot 5 times, twice in his chest and back, and once in the head. The day after his shooting, his wife told detectives that there was some bad blood between her husband and 2 different men over outstanding debts. Both of those leads were dead ends, and both men were cleared as possible suspects. Buzz's father, Buck, had suspected that Kim's family played a part in his murder all along. He informed detectives that the family feud began between Buzz and his in-laws over the custody of Rebecca. Remember, Kim's first daughter. In 1992, before Kim and Buzz were married, Richard and Cynthia Carpenter filed for emergency temporary custody of Rebecca, which was granted by a judge based on their account of their daughter's parenting. This started a court battle which led to Buzz and Kim eventually winning custody of Rebecca. The grandparents fought this decision, and within that fight, allegations were made implying that Buzz was sexually abusing Rebecca. A private investigator was even hired to follow Buzz, and it resulted in no evidence of any sort of abuse. Tensions only grew within the family from there, so bad that Buzz had planned to move his family to Arizona, where he had a job opportunity. When the police questioned the grandparents, Richard and Cynthia, they confirmed that there was a feud amongst the family and that they were indeed trying to gain permanent custody of their granddaughter, but strongly claimed that they had no information or idea what might have happened to their son-in-law. Richard's alibi also checked out, and this would lessen investigators' suspicion of the grandparents. Back at square one, with no solid leads, a little over 2 months would pass by before police received a tip. On May 25th, 1994, police got a phone call from a woman named Kathy. She wanted to report that her boyfriend, Joseph Fremont, and his friend Mark, a used car salesman, were involved in Buzz's murder.
Kathy explained that she was the girlfriend of a person who had some information on who might have committed this murder.
She identified her boyfriend, Joseph Fremont, and his friend, Mark Dupre, as suspects.
The way she explained it to me, she says, I've done a lot of bad things in my life, but I can't be a part of this. This bothers me, and this bothers me a lot. So she brought out the fact that her boyfriend and a friend of his by the name of Mark Dupre were planning to do some sort of murder.
According to detectives, Mark had a criminal history with drug dealing and was a registered informant for the state police narcotics squad. Mark met with authorities, but he was under the assumption that they wanted to talk to him about his role as a drug informant. It wasn't until he got to the meeting location they told him they wanted information about Buzz's murder. At that point, Mark asked for his lawyer and attempted to reach him. Guess who his lawyer was? Heyman Klein. When he couldn't reach Heyman by phone, he decided he did not want to speak to this detective any longer. But before he departed ways, he got in the car with another detective and told him that he did have information. Mark admitted that he dealt drugs for Heyman, the married real estate lawyer with teenage children, and that he was hired to kill Buzz for $8,500 and had already received a down payment of about $1,500. He confirmed that Beth was present when he met with Heyman and that the two were having an affair. Mark was arrested following his interview. Now, with enough evidence, which included Mark's confession and phone records, investigators were able to obtain an arrest warrant for Heyman, but he had gone missing by then. With their focus on Beth, detectives learned that she had gone to the UK for work. In phone conversations with her, she confirmed that she was having an affair with Heyman, but any involvement in her brother-in-law's death, offering, though, her assistance to arrest her lover. And Heyman was arrested on February 5th, 1996 in California. He was waiting by a payphone for a call from Beth that was arranged. He was set to go to trial in June of 1997, but before he would face the courts, he too turned on his lover, admitting that Beth had masterminded Buzz's murder. He said their relationship was pretty much centered around this family feud, and when Buzz brought up moving to Arizona, that was the last straw. He admitted he was infatuated with Beth and would do anything for her, and obviously that included murder. An arrest warrant was issued for Beth on August 26, 1997. By that time, Beth was living and working in Ireland, but Ireland authorities did arrest her. However, she couldn't be extradited until Connecticut agreed to take the death penalty off the table. Following a 2-year legal battle, in June of 1999, Beth was returned to Connecticut and entered pleas of not guilty. There was no evidence to move forward with arresting her parents. As Beth sat on the other end of the courtroom as a defendant, her attorneys claimed that she had no hand in Buzz's murder, that she was only venting to her lover about her family situations, and that Heyman decided to take matters into his own hands. He was given the perfect opportunity when he learned that Buzz had put an ad out to sell his tow truck. So Heyman reached out to Buzz and arranged to meet and look at the truck. But it wouldn't be Heyman that met with Buzz. It was Mark. He called Joseph to ride with him. And even though Joseph had his hands in the murder plot, he decided not to go. Instead, Mark took his 15-year-old son. And it was his son who would tell investigators later what he recalled on the early morning of March 10th, 1994.
Anson Clinton gets on the highway. Mark Dupre is following. As he pulls off the exit 92, which is a Rocky Neck connector, they're driving down the connector. It's a pretty desolate area, not much in the way of traffic. As they get down toward the end of it, Mark says they flash the headlights on the car. He then states that Anson Clinton pulls over. He's driving his brown Firebird. As he gets out of the car and starts to walk back toward Mark Dupre empties a .38 caliber revolver into it, killing him. He then takes off and the murder's done.
Beth Carpenter was found guilty on April 12, 2002. She was sentenced to life without parole. Heyman Klein took a plea deal and was sentenced to 35 years. He served 22 and was released on good behavior in 2019. The trigger man, Mark, got 45 years. Per Connecticut Department of Corrections online records, his maximum release date is scheduled as January 20th, 2028. Sincerest condolences to the family of Anson Buzz Clinton III, and may he rest in peace. I just shot my girlfriend. I don't think she's breathing, is what Brianna Triplett told a 911 operator on March 16, 2021, as 28-year-old Dwania Turner lay in the street bleeding from her mouth. The shooting occurred at the corner of Legion Avenue and Auburn Street in New Haven. Although Brianna called 911 for help, reports said she refused to perform CPR. Police were dispatched to the scene around 10:18 p.m. Upon their arrival, Dwania was unresponsive on her back, suffering from an apparent gunshot wound. Brianna was standing next to her, still with her gun in hand. Officers instructed her to place the gun on the roof of a car, which she did, and placed her in handcuffs. Police also observed a large kitchen knife covered in blood on the ground next to Dwania's left hand. She was taken to Yale New Haven Hospital, where she was pronounced deceased at 10:35 p.m. She wasn't the only victim. Her friend had also been shot in the hand. She ran to the Seven Haven corner store nearby to call police for help. When detectives questioned Brianna, she confirmed that she had been in a dating relationship with Dwania for 2.5 years. They were in a dispute since the morning of the shooting. She said that Dwania had ended their relationship that day, and she left the home on Legion Avenue at approximately 4 p.m. Brianna further explained that throughout the day, she and her girlfriend argued with each other through telephone calls and text messages. When she returned to the residence, she found her personal belongings packed, and she was again asked to leave. Brianna said she left again to get some food and returned at approximately 10 p.m. Dwania was not there when she returned, but shortly arrived afterwards with her friend. She said Dwania got out the car screaming. She began hitting her in the face with a closed fist and poured chocolate syrup on her. Brianna says she started to defend herself, fighting back. She claimed she heard Dwania ask her friend to get a knife. When she heard the word knife, she immediately went to get her gun from her car. As she got out of the car, she heard her tire being punctured. When she began shooting, she believed Dwania was coming towards her, and she didn't know what she was going to do. However, she also acknowledged that she never saw a knife in her hand, but again believed she had it in her hand. After her interview, Brianna was arrested and charged with 1 count of felony first-degree assault for the shooting of Dwania's friend. During the interview with Dwania's friend 2 days after the shooting, according to police reports, she said that on the day of the murder, her friend called her over to talk. She picked her up and they rode around the city talking. Dwania shared with her that the dispute she was having with Brianna was because she believed she was cheating on her and she wanted to end their relationship, telling her that Brianna had continued to show up at her home after being told she was not welcome, scaring her kids. She explained that they were arguing about Brianna refusing sexual advances on 3 separate occasions, furthering her suspicions of infidelity. It was getting close to time for the friends to go to work, so they headed back in the direction to drop Dwania off at home. She felt Brianna was still in the area, so asked the friend to drive around the block first. In the event that Brianna was still around, she could call the police. As they were traveling on Legion Avenue, they saw Brianna standing outside of her car at the intersection of Legion and Auburn Street. As the women approached Auburn Street, the friend said Dwania began to exit the vehicle while the car was still in motion. She approached Brianna, and they were calmly talking at first. But just that fast, as she looked away for a second, she turned back around and the two women were fighting. She got out of her car and broke the fight up, but Brianna hit Dwania again and the two women started fighting once again. She also did admit that as she was trying to guide Dwania away from the fight, she heard her say, "Where's my knife?" Well, the knife was on the ground near Brianna's car. Dwania picked it up and slashed one of Brianna's rear tires. The friend told the police that the next thing she remembered was looking back and seeing Brianna holding what appeared to be a gun. She did not remember seeing her friend of 14 years, who she called her sister, walking towards Brianna with the knife, and could not understand why Brianna continued to fire her gun. She couldn't recall if she had been shot by the second or third shot, telling the detectives, "When she set off the first shot, my sister was not attacking her. When she set off the second shot, my sister was not attacking her. She continued to shoot. She shot me and hit me, and my sister didn't attack her. She was just standing there." At what point was Brianna scared or frightened? At what point was she going to stop? In the detective's report, according to the New Haven Independent, video surveillance footage captured this incident. It was approximately 40 seconds after the friend got out of her vehicle at 10:13 p.m. to break up the fight that the first gunshot went off. A brief pause and then another shot, a third shot, and then the fourth shot. Brianna was indicted on 1 count of felony murder, 1 count of misdemeanor first-degree reckless endangerment, and 1 count of misdemeanor illegal discharge of a firearm in April. She entered a plea of not guilty and took her case to trial. On February 1st, 2023, her trial commenced, and on February 7th, the jury returned a guilty verdict. On April 25th, New Haven State Attorney John P. Doyle Jr. announced that Brianna Triplett had been sentenced to 35 years in prison for fatally shooting her girlfriend. Dwania, also known as Nene, was described as a joyous, spirited young woman taken way before her time. She leaves behind 2 children. I send condolences to those babies and all of those that loved and knew Dwania. May she rest in peace. You know, it just really kills me when these defendants stand there crying their eyes out in front of the families of their victims who they've actually hurt. This is Heather Anderson, a former Naugatuck resident who took the life of an innocent 34-year-old woman who she didn't even know during a home invasion in 2022. Shelley Stamp, a paraprofessional with Waterbury Public Schools since 2005, was found dead in her apartment by her brother-in-law. Shelley's family grew concerned about her after they hadn't heard from her all day. Her brother-in-law Sam stopped by her apartment in the 100 block of Newberry Street to check on her on October 29th, 2022, according to the police. He found his sister-in-law unresponsive, face down on the floor, lying in a pool of her blood. When paramedics arrived, they turned Shelley over and they found her head, face, and neck was wrapped with a jacket. She was pronounced dead at the scene by medical personnel before police officers could even arrive a little after 10 p.m. that night. Law enforcement's investigation revealed that Heather Anderson went to Shelley's apartment the night before. Heather, in search of a man she thought would give her some money for drugs. The man used to live in Shelley's apartment but had moved to another unit in the building. Heather was captured on surveillance trying to get into Shelley's apartment. She's then caught about 20 minutes later walking back to Shelley's apartment when she arrived home from work. Heather admitted to shouldering Shelley to the ground face first and robbing her. Waterbury police believe that Heather was inside Shelley's apartment for hours, ransacking her home for anything of value. She left with about $75, a credit card that she used for gas multiple times and bought some Burger King. She even took homemade meals out of this woman's refrigerator. Heather said she heard agonized breathing but did not help Shelley. She denied tying the jacket around Shelley's head. She was arrested in November of 2022, and in her possession at that time was Shelley's license, health insurance card, and Shelley's credit card. Shannon was arrested a couple days later, also facing murder and other serious charges. However, police believe she never entered Shelley's apartment and she was released, only charged with 2 misdemeanors in connection with Shelley's death. Shannon was freed on a promise to appear back in court, a promise she did not keep. In early 2023, prosecutors suggested 36 years in exchange for Heather accepting legal culpability for Shelley's death. In response, Heather's lawyer suggested 25 years. Superior Court Judge Joseph Schwartz came back offering 30 years. Shelley's mother and family found the offer unacceptable.
She was caring, she was loving, she was a paraprofessional, she worked with preschool children with special needs. She was 34 years old. I never saw her get married. I never saw her have grandchildren.
For them to bring it down more, we're pretty upset about it. Like she said, she was strangled with her own jacket by this woman, and it was brutal, and my poor husband found her.
And you want to offer 30 years for the life of an innocent woman coming home from her third job into her own home, her own sanctuary, brutally murdered, strangled, hit in the head, and left to die.
The case was again continued by the judge. It was said in order for Shelley's family to offer their formal input. Ultimately, Heather accepted that 30-year sentence on December 20th, 2023.
The family of Shelley Stamp watched Heather Anderson accept that plea deal. They say 30 years is not long enough for the brutal and senseless killing. Inside a courtroom in Waterbury Superior Court.
Instead of Sunday shopping for her wedding gown, I had to shop for clothes for her funeral.
The mother of Shelley Stamp, a 34-year-old killed inside her apartment in 2022, tearfully addressed the court.
She killed my daughter with her bare hands by strangling and or suffocating her. She left her to die on the floor in a puddle of her own blood while the beast ransacked her apartment for hours.
Prosecutors say it was Heather Anderson of Naugatuck who killed Stamp in a random attack on an October night, as Stamp, a paraprofessional and waitress, was coming home from her third job.
And she pulled into the apartment building. Heather Anderson saw her and followed her into the apartment building.
Prosecutors say the motive was robbery. Anderson's accused of breaking in and killing Stamp, a random stranger, then taking with her Stamp's credit cards and leftover pasta from her fridge.
The state alleges after Shelley had been killed, Shelley's debit card had been used at a Burger King in Hartford.
Anderson was offered a plea deal of 30 years. Wednesday, she accepted that deal, much to the Stamp family's dismay.
There's absolutely no justice in 30 years. It's an insult to my daughter's life. It's an absolute slap in the face to my daughter that the brutal murderer just got 30 years.
The family is grateful not to have to endure a trial, but are now dreading another holiday without Stamp. Christmas was her favorite.
It's just hard. It's Christmas. We don't have Shelley. We don't have half our family. It's just devastating.
Shannon pled guilty to receipt from illegal use of a credit card and second-degree failure to appear for not showing up in court in February of 2024. She only received 2 years probation. Rest in peace to Miss Shelley Stamp.